All right. First of all, welcome, all of you. My name is Patrick Duparc. I'm the Dean of the Graduate School of Business. And I'm very happy to see all of you here to learn and discuss a little bit more about something that is, I think, very important for this region in the world, but especially very important for Kazakhstan. Before we go on, who is currently here who's not connected to Nazarbayev University, either as a student or a faculty member or staff? All right, very welcome. Is this your first time on campus? No, no. Most people have been here. Nazarbayev University's mission obviously is to create a solid research institution. A research institution that does great research. We attract really great researchers from all over the world here. A number of people in this building work with Nobel Prize winners. Doesn't get that bad. What we try to do in our research as well is to make sure that it's research that matters. That it is not just something esoteric, but that it is something that is useful for Kazakhstan. I think that Belton Road initiative and everything that it means is very important for Kazakhstan. Now, the Belton Road initiative is talked about worldwide, but if you ask people, what does it really mean? And what will be the impact of the Belton Road initiative for the world, for China, for Europe, and for Kazakhstan? Usually, you don't get that many good answers. The best you usually get is, well, it's a new mode of transportation to get from China to Europe, or Europe to China, and Kazakhstan is in the middle. And so I hope that, after tonight, you see that, you will see and understand that it can mean a lot more than that. From my point of view, I often use it as a selling point when I try to sell Kazakhstan in the rest of the world. I often say that Kazakhstan has moved from the middle of nowhere to the middle of everywhere. And so in many ways, that's one of the things that the Belt and Road Initiative will do. So I'm as eager probably and as curious probably as you are to learn what else it could mean. And to enlighten us on that, we have here with us today Professor Zhijian Chui. I probably butcher his name, but Zhijian has previously been in the US, at INSEAD in France, at Hong Kong University of Science and Technology, and at Institute Impresa in Spain. And we're lucky enough to have him with us here today, actually on our faculty, not just today. And I'm really looking forward, Zhijian, to learn more about the Belt and Road Initiative. So please enlighten us. Thank you.
All right, okay. All right, thanks a lot for having me, and thanks a lot for coming to this seminar. And also appreciate the very nice introduction made by Patrick. So as you can tell, I'm Chinese. So before coming here, I lived 6 years in Spain, 6 years in France, and 4 years in the United States. And I also spent 2 years in Hong Kong as well. So I live in several members of this One Belt and One Road initiative. So today I would like to share some of my opinions regarding sort of the status quo and the challenges and the opportunities of this initiative. And of course, this is still a sort of new initiative. So a lot of things are not clear yet, right? So I would also like to listen to your opinions on these issues, right? And let me start. So also, since I'm an operation faculty, as you see from the title, so my sort of speech is mainly focused on sort of operational perspective of One Belt, One Road. Okay, so Belton Road Initiative, right? So we know that this initiative is closely related with Nazarbayev University, actually, right? So this initiative was first time proposed by Chinese President Xi in 2013 during his state visit to Kazakhstan, right? This is a picture of President Xi when he makes this speech at Nazarbayev University in the Senate Hall, right? And in the later year, in 2013, so this Silk Road Belt economical belt initiative was expanded to a Belt Road initiative by adding another part. This is 21st century maritime Silk Road. Again, this is presented by President Xi in Indonesia, okay, in November of 2013. Okay? So in order to provide sufficient amount of funding for this great initiative, okay, so the AIIB Bank was founded in 2004. By today, this bank has 84 members, including 61 current members and 23 prospective members. Okay, and so this is a clear. The AIIB Bank is a multi-party funding agency, provides sort of fundings and credit to the countries on Belt and Road initiatives. And in addition to this multi-party agency, Chinese government has its own fund. That is called Silk Road Fund. Okay, Silk Road Fund was founded in 2004 with $400 billion initial investment. And last year, Chinese government announced that they will add another $15 billion investment into this fund. Okay, and particularly for Kazakhstan, so in 2015, so China and Kazakhstan signed an agreement. So under the umbrella of a Silk Road Fund, there will be a special fund, okay, for the cooperation of the natural resources with Kazakhstan, with the initial capital of $2 billion. This is something specific to Kazakhstan. Okay, this is basically about the status quo of One Belt, One Road initiative. And we also know that last year there is a big sort of Belt and Road Cooperation Summit held in Beijing, and President Nazarbayev visited Beijing and had a sort of a very productive meeting with Chinese leaders as well. All right, so this is status quo. Right? But why this initiative is called the Belt and Road Initiative? Right? So that's why we need to look at the sort of history of a Silk Road. Okay? In fact, the Belt and Road Initiative is closely related with the concept of a Silk Road in the days of ancient China. Right? So probably like 1,000 years ago, okay, when modern approaches to transportations were not available, okay, so people use horses and camels to transport products from China to Europe. Okay, on the land, the old Silk Road started from Chang'an. Now the name of the city is called Xi'an. Okay, the former capital of China in Han and Tang Dynasty. Okay, so that's the starting point of an old Silk Road. Okay, then it goes through the sort of the deserts of Central Asia and Persia and ended at Mediterranean Sea. Okay, that's the Silk Road on the land. Okay, so on this old Silk Road, so people transported basically the silk, tea, and porcelains from China to Europe, and transported like gold, jewelries, and glass back to China. Okay, so this is a Silk Road on the land, and in addition to that, there's a Silk Road on the ocean. It started from Guangzhou Harbor and the Quanzhou Harbor. There are two harbors in China. Okay, and going through the South China Sea, Indian Ocean, again, it's ended at the Mediterranean Sea. Okay, this is sort of the Silk Road in the past, probably 1,000 years ago. And this Silk Road, particularly the Silk Road on the land, almost vanished 300 years ago, okay, due to the walls, right? And nowadays, this Silk Road has been expanded significantly. Right? Eventually, the routes of trade between China and Europe has been expanded significantly in the past 100 years. Right? So nowadays, this Silk Road eventually refers to a vast network of railways. Okay? So sometimes people refer this network as Euro-Asian land bridge. Okay? So it is composed by 3 routes. So the northern route, starting from Vladivostok in Russia, I guess my pronunciation was awful, right? It's a Russian city, okay? And connecting several cities in China and Korea, and going through Russia, ended at St. Petersburg. That's a sort of a northern route of this Euro-Asia land bridge, okay? And there's a central route starting from the Lianyungang harbor of China, okay, going through Xi'an, Lanzhou, Urumqi, and Kazakhstan, and ended at Germany and Netherlands. Okay, that's a sort of a central route of this land bridge. And there's a third one. Okay, this route under the construction right now. Okay, on the plan, it will start from Shenzhen, the southern part of China. Okay, going through the Yunnan province, and then connected with a railway network in Southeastern Asia. For example, the railway system in Thailand, in Cambodia, in Myanmar. Okay, that's kind of the railway network Chinese government trying to push, or the network under the construction, including something has been finished, something is going to be developed in the next 20 years. Okay, this is basically the status quo. Okay, but of course, in addition to this vast network on the land, there will be a lot of harbors, okay, along this Belton Road initiatives. Okay, for example, Sri Lanka will be a very important hub on the ocean, and Pakistan will be another important partner on this initiative, and some African countries will be involved as well. Okay, this is basically the overview of Belton Road initiatives, okay, and how it works nowadays. Right? So, but what is the motivation of this? Why China needs this? Why China propose this big plan? Some people make an analogy between Belton Road initiative with Marshall Plan, okay, proposed by the United States in 1950s. Okay, so in order to understand the at least the economical motivation of this initiative, we need to think about the history of Chinese economy. Right? We know that China decided to start its economic reform and open its door to foreign investors 30 years ago, more than 40 years ago, actually, more than 40 years ago. Right? So at that time, okay, China desperately need investment from foreign investors, particularly the investment from Europe and the United States. Okay? So if we sit in the shoes of foreign investors, we need to think about where we should put our money. Okay? So eventually there are two factors that are extremely important in the eyes of foreign investors. Number one is to get easy access to raw materials and cheap labor. That's very, very important. If you want to build a plant, you need to get easy access to both natural resources, like raw materials, and cheap labor. And in addition to that, okay, this location must have easy access to transportation such that the finished products can be shipped out of China and send it back to the home market, say the United States or Europe. Okay? And 30 years ago, the entire China was very poor. So the labor costs on these coastal cities are as low as the labor costs in these inland provinces. They're all the same. They're all very poor. The labor cost was very low in China everywhere. Okay? And these coastal provinces do not produce natural resources at all, but because they are very close to the coast, they are very close to the ocean, right? So they can still get easy access to the raw materials, which eventually come from other countries, from Europe, from Canada, from other Asian countries. And more importantly, right, the finished goods product can be easily shipped out of China, very easily. Okay? And another reason is that, particularly in Guangdong provinces, Hong Kong was very close to Guangdong provinces. And Hong Kong, it was the largest source of capital at the early stage of Chinese economic reform. Okay? And that's why if you think about the history of Chinese economy, at least at the early stage, more than 85% of foreign investment were clustered in the eastern coast, on the eastern part of China, particularly those coastal provinces. Okay? So this figure actually shows that those coastal provinces are the richest region in China in terms of GDP per capita. They are very rich. Okay? We actually see a big gap in terms of income between the inland provinces and those coastal provinces. So the gap is getting bigger and bigger these years, actually. Right? So what can be done? Because we know that as Chinese economy grew, particularly in the past 20 years after China joined WTO. The labor costs in China increased significantly. Okay? In fact, the labor costs in Guangdong province and Shanghai, okay, are comparable with Spain. Okay? Spain is not that cheap, actually. The labor cost in Spain is much higher than Portugal, for example. Okay? But now the labor costs in some provinces of China are as high as some European countries, some middle-level European countries. Okay? So a lot of foreign investors, even some Chinese companies, start to think about where they should go as a next step. Naturally, they start to think about going west. That's the background of this going west strategy started in early 2000. So many companies moved their production facilities gradually to the inland provinces of China, particularly the western part of China. Okay? By doing so, on one hand, they get easy access to cheap laborers, because labor cost there is very, very low. Okay? They get easy access to raw materials, because those provinces, the inland provinces, produce a lot of natural resources and the coal and the gas. But the problem is that they are getting far away from their main market, like Europe or the United States. They are far away from the harbors on the coast. So what is the way out? Right? So one thing they can do, build railways connecting Europe with China. Okay? They don't go to the coastal harbors anymore. Instead, they could use railways to transport the product all the way from the inland provinces to Europe directly. And I will show some examples, for example, how HP managed its production facility in Chongqing, for example. Okay? And another way out is to produce some local demand that is close enough. Okay? So those firms are not targeting at US market or European market anymore. Instead, they try to create some demand locally that is close enough. Okay? That's basically two way out. Okay? So this basically constitutes the general economical motivation of this One Belt, One Road initiative. It is also closely related with China's so-called going west strategy. That's not as popular as One Belt, One Road, but that's actually an older version of a One Belt, One Road initiative in China. Because going west strategy was first time proposed in 1998, actually, as a sort of top-notch strategy in China already. Now, that strategy was kind of abandoned. Chinese government never mentioned that anymore. It's become part of this One Belt, One Road initiative. Right? That's the historical background. Right? So now let's step back from Chinese context. Let's make a generic comparison between sort of the three available approaches of transportation between Europe and China. Okay, I take Spain as an example because I know more about Spain, right? So suppose you want to transport something from Shanghai to Barcelona or Valencia. Okay, so if you choose air freight, it takes only 2 to 3 days. Okay, if you choose ocean freight, it takes 4 to 5 weeks. Okay, but if you choose railways, it takes only 2 weeks. Okay. You can see that in terms of time, railway is something between ocean freight and air freight. Okay. But if you look at the cost, here I normalize the cost, the transportation cost for ocean freight as 1. I normalize it as 1. Okay. And the transporting something via air freight will cost 10 to 15. It means transporting something by air is faster, but it costs 10 to 15 higher than transporting the same thing via ocean freight. But if you choose a railway system, the cost will be 2 to 3. Okay? So this is a very generic comparison between these three approaches of transportation. Okay? Yes, please.
What about the volume of the products that is being transported?
Volume. Yeah.
Because as far as I'm concerned, by ocean you can
very big stuff.
a lot more than by this railroad.
Yes, absolutely. You're absolutely right. Okay, that's one constraint of this railway system, right? Because for huge electronic equipment, because China imported a lot of electronic product from Germany. For example, Siemens now is actually the largest European company providing technologies to China, but a lot of big equipment cannot be shipped by the trains because it's so big. You must use ocean freight. But that's another issue. But so far I haven't talked about sort of the volume issue here. But volume indeed is a very big issue here. In fact, it's an additional constraint of using railways. But even we think about, we kind of neglect the volume issue, the straightforward trade-off among these three approaches is the time and the cost. Okay, so do you choose sort of a shorter time or and pay higher cost, or lower cost but longer time? That's a straightforward trade-off among these three transportation approaches. Okay, let me give you another example. Again, shipping a container. This is just a standard container from Shanghai to Rotterdam harbor. Okay, if you choose the air freight 2 days, it costs $45,000 US. The ocean freight, 35 weeks, but it only costs $3,000 US. Okay, if rail, 2 weeks, $9,000 US. So which one do you choose? Okay, eventually this is a strategic decision. We need to think about the business model as well. Right? So, but nowadays we think about the trade between China and Europe. Ocean freight is so far the dominant approach of transportation. Yes, please.
And of course, another factor here is not only the trade-off between cost and time, but also location. So if you, for example, have to ship something that is about halfway between Shanghai and Rotterdam, you're as far away from the ocean. So if you use ocean freight, you may ship it to Rotterdam, but then it has to get back on a train to go inland.
Exactly.
And so then train may actually be much better.
Right.
So there's a lot of factors involved
Yeah.
there. But the bottom line is that by creating this, you offer more choices.
Right.
And in some cases, this choice will be the better one. In other cases, the other choices will be the better one, or still be the better one.
Yeah.
If you ever done optimization, if you increase your feasible set, your optimum can only improve, never go down. So what we do here, we increase the feasible set.
Yeah. Exactly. I think there's a
Are
lady.
you an engineer?
Economist.
Right? You understand feasible sets as well.
Yeah, I think this lady. Okay, I'm sorry. I think that's days. Okay, I'm sorry. I think this should be days. I'm sorry. This should be this is the typo. Thanks for pointing this out. All right. Again, this is just a generic comparison between these three approaches of transportation. Okay, but how this is related with the business? Okay, let's talk about the business model. Okay. By thinking about different approaches of transportation. Right? Again, so I move from China to Europe, then I will talk about the company in the United States. Okay, this is a messenger bag manufacturer located in San Francisco. Okay, this company called Timbuktu. You can check the website of this company. This company is still online. Okay, I checked his website yesterday, and I designed this bag by myself. Okay, so this firm eventually is producing a customized 3-panel messenger bag. Okay, the design is relatively simple because this is 3-panel bags. Okay, customer can choose color, okay, as he or she likes for each specific panel. Okay, so for each panel there are almost 40 options nowadays. For each panel, okay, I choose yellow for this panel. I choose another color for this panel and another color for the red panel. And you can also customize the color of the binders, of the logos, of the hangers. So everything can be customized. Okay, theoretically, there will be more than 6 billion potential combinations. 40 is a small number, but if you multiply all these numbers together, it's a huge number. Okay, this is a small firm. Okay? It's located in San Francisco, and this bag is actually manufactured in San Francisco, which is regarded as one of the most expensive regions in the world. Okay, but why is that? Right? So this, you see, I designed this bag. This is the bag I'm very proud of, and online. This is the price. This is $154. Okay, just a bag like this. It's not like a luxury product. It's just a customized bag. Okay, a bag like this costs $154. But if you go to Walmart or Carrefour to buy a similar messenger bag, at most $50 at most. Okay, so the option of customization eventually provides huge benefit for the firms. We see that, right, from this very simple case. Okay, and because the price is so high, the firm must offer something to the consumers to justify the extremely high price. Okay, So this firm promised online that if you order something from the e-commerce outlet of this firm, okay, the US domestic customers can get the bag within 3 working days, less than 3 working days, 1 day or 2 days. Probably the same day if you are close enough. All right? So one challenge this firm is facing was, should they outsource the production to China? Because that's actually that is exactly the challenge this firm faced in 2008, 2010. At that time, because my former PhD advisor in INSEAD interviewed the CEO of the firm and tried to understand why he didn't outsource its production to China. Because that's exactly the question they were thinking about. Okay, because San Francisco is so expensive. Intuitively, nobody want to produce something in San Francisco. Everything is so expensive. The rent is high, the labor cost is high. Okay, but why do they do that? Right? So this is a calculation based on the data from this firm. All right. So remember that they promised to deliver the product to US domestic customer within 2 to 3 days. The delivery time actually is very short. Right? So if they choose ocean freight, okay, this is the cost. To transport, if they outsource production to China and choose ocean freight to ship product back to San Francisco, you see the transportation cost is relatively low. On average, only $1 per bag. So producing, in that case, okay, including the transportation cost to San Francisco, producing a bag in China is still significantly cheaper than producing a bag in San Francisco. It's much cheaper, even we already consider the transportation cost. Okay? However, if we use air freight as an approach of transportation, okay, to ship a bag from China to San Francisco, you see, it becomes more expensive, in fact, to produce a bag in China. Okay, but remember that the lead time is very short here, okay, because they promised that this bag should be delivered in 2 to 3 days. This is a very expensive bag. This is not standard $50 US bag. They pay a lot, and the customer deserves fast delivery. So eventually, this firm didn't do that. So this firm didn't outsource the production to China. Instead, this firm keep all production in San Francisco. Okay? Of course, this is an extreme comparison between 2 scenarios because there's no railway between China and the United States. There's only Pacific Ocean. Right? So there's no railway. That's why we can make some extreme comparisons between ocean freight and air freight. Okay? And clearly, so the choice of transportation approach will depend on the choice of business models. If you choose this kind of BTO, everything is customized, okay, you probably, timing is extremely important. You need air freight. But if you choose BTF, with very long lead time, probably you can use ocean freight. Okay? But at the same time, you can see that the availability of some transportation approach will enable some new business models. Because here, there's no third option. There are only 2 options. But what if there's a third option? For example, the railway existing between the US and China. I don't know, maybe in the future with the breakthrough of technologies. Okay? That's why let's think about another story back to Europe. Okay? Because between China and Europe, railway system exists, indeed exists. In US, there's no third option. Okay. So let's look at the supply chain of Renault. Okay, Renault is the largest automobile manufacturer in France and the 3rd largest automobile manufacturer in Europe. Right? So in the past, besides its production facility within France, Renault only has plants in Eastern European countries because of relatively low labor costs there, in Slovenia, in Romania. Okay, most of the product were produced there and sent back to France, Spain, and Portugal. Okay. But from 2008, so Renault started to move part of the supply chain to Morocco, to here. Morocco is actually regarded as probably the most stable economy in North Africa, actually. It's close enough to Spain and Portugal, as you see from the map. It's very, very close. Okay? So nowadays, Renault has 2 plants, one plant in Casablanca and another plant in Tangier. Okay, so in fact, nowadays 90% of production from Tangier plant were exported, and 50% or 6% of production from Casablanca plant were exported. But where they are exported to? Spain and Portugal. They are serving the demand from Portugal and Spain. You see? So by moving the locations here, the distance of transportation is shortened significantly. Okay, that's one way to, okay, you see, to innovate the business models and also kind of the diversification of risks, okay, across multiple countries and regions. Okay, so we can see that location actually matters. Transportation approach also matters here. All right. So another case. Let's go back to the U.S. again. All right. So the day before yesterday, right, the U.S. President Donald Trump gave a State of the Union address. Okay, and he proudly announced that he said, we slashed the business tax from 35% to 21%, and 21%. And U.S. companies are coming back. Okay, that's exactly what he said. Yes, the day before yesterday in the State of the Union address. It's an excellent speech, actually. Okay, so he thinks that by reducing the business tax, okay, maybe a lot of U.S. companies are going home now. But however, the result from a sort of a survey conducted by many academic institutions is not as encouraging as President Trump expects, right? So according to this survey, so basically 100 companies, okay, this is about the production decision actually made by 100 decisions. This is not about the plan or projection, it's about the actual the actual decision made by these companies, okay? It turns out that 17% of companies responded that they are going to increase, they increased their production volume in North America, including Canada and the United States. However, another 17% said they actually decreased the production quantity in the same region. Okay? If you look at China, so 36% said they increased, but of course 17% said increased, but 17% said they decreased. Okay? But if you look at India, it's amazing. Actually, 11% of companies said they increased, but 0% said they decreased. So nobody actually decreased.
So 30% of companies in China say they want to reshore, outsource, offshore more production. Is that how you read it?
Right. The 36% of companies who get surveyed said they increased the production volume in China already.
Oh, increase the production volume
in China, exactly. In China. Okay. 36% of all companies who get surveyed. Okay. And 11% increase the production count in India, but 0% eventually nobody decreased. Okay, why is that? Because nowadays, firms outsource the production not only because of relatively low labor costs in these emerging economy countries, okay, but they also try to enter these sort of fast-growing emerging markets. Because they try to get easy access to the markets, because they try to get some demand from those countries instead of only taking advantage of lower labor cost. Okay, that's why the reassuring is really happening. I'm not that optimistic. Okay, at least not as optimistic as some politicians. Right? So let's look at a sort of a encouraging story of a U.S. company in China. Okay, so as I mentioned before, starting from early 2000, okay, so going west become a sort of top-notch strategy in China. Chinese government is pushing a lot of Western companies going to the west to invest into the east, into the western part of China, like Chongqing, like Sichuan provinces, like Xinjiang. Okay, this province. Okay, and HP is one of the first movers. Actually, they moved their facility from Shenzhen to Chongqing. Okay, in 2008. Okay. But at that time, the infrastructure in Chongqing was not ready yet. Okay. The airport was very small. Okay. Some cargo airplane cannot land in Chongqing airport. Okay. So what can they do? They hired a former employee from Foxconn. Foxconn is a Taiwanese company. It's a major supplier of Apple. Okay. So actually hired someone. This is the director of procurement from Foxconn. And this guy started to pilot a potential route, okay, basically a railway route between Chongqing and Germany, okay, going through Kazakhstan, Russia, Belarus, Poland, basically. Okay, he started to pilot this. Okay, one background behind this initiative was that because in 2008, 2009, the price of gasoline was very, very high. Okay? So that's why the entire ocean freight industry struggled to reduce the consumption of a fuel by reducing the speed. If they don't drive fast, the consumption of fuel can be reduced. They try to save money. Okay? But this eventually leads to more delays in the ocean freight industry. That's the general background. That's why I think, okay, the ocean freight is not reliable anymore. We need to think about another way. This is the railway systems. Okay? So this guy finds this route going through Kazakhstan, Russia, and Belarus, but not much progress has been made until these three countries, Kazakhstan, Russia, and Belarus, okay, signed agreement to form a customs union. Okay, literally, that's a big breakthrough. That means, okay, the export and imports only need to clear customs once in these three countries. Literally, that means Chinese product can go to Europe almost directly, and passing the customs only once. That creates a big breakthrough, okay, in this initiative. And initially, HP perceived this route as a sort of private information. They protect it as a private information because they think this is a competitive advantage other companies do not have. So other shippers, other companies cannot use, okay, this train because this is really unique. Okay, but as time goes on, HP realized that it's not really smart to do so. Okay, because by having more sort of shippers and more players in on this route, okay, so HP is able to ask more numbers of trains traveling between Europe and China, and in addition to that, by having more players on the train, you know the transportation cost can be spread out. Okay, more parties can share the transportation cost. So as a result, the per unit transportation cost could be reduced significantly. Okay, so that's why nowadays many companies in Chongqing are using this railway, started by HP. This is still a sort of HP special Silk Road train, but it is now being used by many shippers, many companies, even the competitors of HP in Chongqing. Okay, that's what HP is doing nowadays. And nowadays, the cost of shipping something by rail, by this special rail, is only 25% higher than the transportation cost using the ocean freight. It's very, very low, actually. Okay, this become a real strategic advantage for HP. And this is kind of an encouraging story, okay, that happened in China. All right, so after going through these examples, we can see that by constructing this vast network of railway system between Europe and China, some new business models may emerge. Okay? In the past, people seem to tend to think about two extremes of business models. One is BTF, we call this BTF in operations. It's build to forecast. I build something according to the demand forecast. Okay? So lead time is very long. Okay? And so if you use BTF or build to forecast business models, you are able to outsource the production to other countries, like offshore productions in low-cost countries. That's quite common in US and Europe. Okay. But the thing is, if the lead time becomes very long, the product design must be standardized. You need to frozen the design long time ahead of the selling season starts. Okay? And the inventory cost is relatively high, higher waste, slow response to customer need, and lower product variety. That's well understood in operations literature. Okay, this is BTF, the trade-off of using BTF business models. In another extreme, we think of BTO, build to order. Okay, build according to the actual order received. Okay, that provides a lot of flexibility to the firms. Okay, that means you need to use local production in some high-cost countries. That's exactly the business model Zara used when it started, right? Because at the early stage of Zara, most of the production of Zara was located in Spain and Portugal, not really outsourced to any other low-cost countries. Okay, because it's more like we try to get a very short lead time. Okay, low inventory cost, low waste, fast response. You are able to get some customization, which creates some premium price. Okay, we already see that from this Timbuktu messenger bag mini case. Okay, so this eventually is the traditional wisdom in operations. We have two extremes. You either go this way or that way. Okay, using the metaphor of Michael Porter, right? You either be a product leader or a cost leader. Either way, you can't get best of two worlds at the same time. Okay, but if with the help of a railway system, as we mentioned before, for example, in the case of HP, Nowadays, the transportation cost of a railway is only 25% higher than ocean freight. Since everything is organized in a very efficient way, okay, that means that potentially a new business model, a new landscape of competition, okay, a word inside people like to use is blue ocean. Blue ocean emerged. Okay, you eventually make your competitor irrelevant, you don't compete with them anymore. Okay, that's one opportunity that did not even exist before the emergence of railway systems. Okay, that's one opportunity I perceive, so-called the blue ocean idea. I also sell the concept from inside a little bit all the time. Sorry. So another opportunity, e-commerce. Here I'm not talking about e-commerce within China. I will be focused on talking about the cross-border e-commerces. With no doubt, okay, e-commerce boomed in the last 10 years, okay, particularly in China. Okay, this figure actually compares the revenue of e-commerce, okay, across several economies. You can see that in 2015, the e-commerce channel created sales as high as $600 billion US. Okay, it's higher than US. China is so far the largest e-commerce market in the world. Okay, that's the status quo. And but how about the cross-border? Because this maybe the majority of the sales happens within China, which is irrelevant with other countries. All right, but if you look at transaction value of Chinese shoppers on overseas online platforms, because a lot of Chinese shoppers go to overseas platforms to get what they want. For example, they go to Amazon.com, for example. Okay, so the transaction values of a Chinese shopper on overseas online platform has reached 140 yuan in 140 billion yuan in 2014. Okay, $1 now equals to 6.5 yuan. Okay, you can see that it grows very fast. So more and more Chinese consumers actually are looking at sort of overseas online platform. They do not only look at Taobao, which is a Chinese platform. They look at other platform as well. All right, but okay, again, so this shows okay the growth of cross-border e-commerce. You see. In total, the total B2C sales increased by 13.5% in 2015, okay, according to this 2014, sorry, according to the survey in the world. But the cross-border B2C increased by 27.4%. Cross-border, I'm talking about okay, the situation that Chinese consumers come here to buy, not like domestic sales within China. Okay, so the cross-border sales actually increased significantly in the past few years. All right, but what are they looking for? Okay, so we know Alibaba is the largest e-commerce B2C website in the world, and Tmall is the major B2C branch okay, within China, and now they have a Tmall Global. Tmall Global is mainly facing sort of the customers, the Chinese customers, who are looking for international quality products from abroad. This is a new platform. It's called Tmall International. So the foreign sellers could go to this platform and sell this product to Chinese consumers. Okay, and this figure shows okay, so the demand for different kinds of product at this platform. Okay, it turns out that the biggest demand okay, for Chinese consumers at Tmall Global is baby care. I think this is kind of understandable, right? Because we know there were several quality scandals regarding the baby care product in China, particularly the baby milk. That's why a lot of Chinese consumers go to this kind of platform to buy baby milk crazily from Germany, from Hong Kong, like from Japan. Okay, the second largest demand okay, comes from cosmetic and personal care, and then it's food and health and fashion. The other products only 6%. Okay, these are the products Chinese consumers are looking for, so-called international quality products. Okay, but what are the main complaints from Chinese consumers? Okay, they're looking, we know what they want, but what they are concerned about. There's another survey. Okay, it turns out that the long delivery time is the biggest factor that hinders Chinese consumers' purchase online from a sort of foreign sellers, because delivery time is so long. Okay? And the second complaint from Chinese consumer is failure to return or exchange goods. Okay? So we can see that the delivery time is a big issue here. Okay? But clearly, if you think about One Belt, One Road, with this vast network of railways and harbors, potentially the lead time could be shortened significantly. That creates a lot of business opportunities for the Belt and Road countries. Yes, please.
So I can obviously see what the benefit is for Chinese customers. They get the products they want faster.
Yeah.
I can obviously see what the benefit is for, say, European manufacturers because they can reach their Chinese customers easier.
Right, that's true.
Could you say that when you look at it from a Kazakh perspective,
Right.
could you say that an opportunity to benefit from it would not only be to serve as a transit country, but somewhere in that supply chain add value to a product for products on their way from Europe to China, or vice versa, from China to Europe, say if you think HP.
From a Kazakh perspective, something, yeah.
Of course, it's wonderful if there's lots of products that go through Kazakhstan,
Yeah, exactly.
from China to Europe and vice versa. We'd love to do a little bit more than be a transit country. So,
Yeah.
for example, do you see it as an operations expert? Do you see possible that Hewlett Packard, for example, would say, I'm going to produce most of it in Chongqing, but some of it actually I could do cheaper in Kazakhstan. So on the way from Chongqing to Germany, I'm going to add some value in Kazakhstan.
Oh yeah, sure, absolutely. Because
That is wonderful.
yeah, because for example, the labor cost here, I think is much lower than Chongqing. Okay. Yeah.
I think what we should be looking at,
Right.
not just being a transit country.
Yeah, exactly.
How we create opportunities to add value,
Yes.
which usually creates.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. And it's, sometimes Chinese customer are looking for something strange, something you may not expect. In January, I spent 2 weeks in China for the home leave, and I realized that one Russian product was very popular and overpriced in China. That's Russian ice cream. Russian was very expensive in China, actually, and very popular. Many Chinese customers are willing to pay a very high price for Russian ice cream. And why is that? Because during a state visit of Xi Jinping to Moscow, okay, so Putin actually invited him to try the Russian ice cream. And he said, maybe Xi Jinping said it in a very polite way. He said, I really like this ice cream. So again, so during Putin's state visit to China, he brought a lot of ice cream to Xi Jinping as a gift. And Xi Jinping, of course, distribute this ice cream to many Chinese officials. And because everything is reported in Chinese state media, so people know that Xi Jinping says a very nice word about the Russian ice creams, okay? And so a lot of ice cream, Russian ice cream appeared in Chinese market, and very expensive, actually. Like one small ice cream, like $5. I'm like, oh, why? Much more expensive than Chinese local ice cream. And I bought one, because I want to try, and because Xi Jinping said it's good, I want to try that. I think to be honest, it's so-so. It's not as good as the Kazakh ice cream, probably. But it's just price is really good. Just one example to show. Sometimes the demand is really, is unexpected.
Just because of the quality, he cannot say otherwise. He should say it's okay.
Yeah, he can say bad words about Russian ice cream, right? But the $5 for just small ice cream, right? This is what Chinese consumers are complaining, okay, on this e-commerce platforms, okay? So this page actually shows what Chinese company already did, okay? Because Chinese companies are moving very fast, okay, on this route. Like they try to shorten the delivery times, not only for Chinese consumers, but also for, say, European and American consumers, okay? There's one again, it's a subsidiary of Alibaba. It's called Cainiao. Okay, this is it's a firm formed in 2013. Okay, this is a parcel delivery platform owned by Alibaba. It's the largest online marketplace. Okay, so this firm actually made some aggressive moves. Okay, by collaborating with several international shippers and even acquired some ghost airports in Spain, in Europe. Some ghost airport, because it means that nobody visits this airport. Spanish government pays like billions of dollars to build this airport, but not enough traffic. That's why it's called Ghost Airport, and Spanish government actually pays a lot to maintain this, and this airport is bought with very low price by Cainiao. And now this Ciudad del Real airport becomes the hub of Cainiao in Spain. Okay, so a lot of Chinese product was shipped to this airport, then distributed to other cities in Spain within 2 days, usually 2 to 3 days. It's very fast because now Spanish consumers can go to Tianmao directly, the platform I mentioned before, and get delivered within 1 week, actually, with the help of this hub in Spain, right? And they also have partnership with Singapore, Brazil, and the USPS. Right? This is what Chinese companies have done. Right? So far, we talked about some challenges, some opportunities, some business, some cross-border e-commerce opportunities, and the opportunities for creating some new business models. Okay. Now let's step back and talk about some challenges and risks. Okay. This is a big initiative. This ambitious initiative is facing. Okay. Basically, in my opinion, there are 4 major challenges. One is custom. Again, it's related with custom. The second one is a technical issue. Tracker gauges. It's a different technology standard. The third one is a fundamental risk or challenge. With unbalanced trade between Europe and China. And the fourth one is other kind of risk. Geopolitical risk, currency, and energy, all kinds of risk. And I will elaborate this risks and challenges briefly in the following. All right? So let's start with the customs. Okay? So delays in customs, according to a survey again, delays in customs has been regarded as one of the major challenges in global trade. Not necessarily for Belton Road, but for other trade. Okay, this is a big issue. Delays in customs. If you choose ocean freight, theoretically, you only need to clear the customs twice. Once as a departure harbor, another as a arrival harbor. But if you choose railways, okay, and this route and the train potentially goes through many countries, so theoretically you may need to clear the customs at each country you enter. Actually, before the customs union among Kazakhstan, Russia, and Belarus was formed, that was the common practice. Okay, the train must clear the customs at each country. That may take a lot of time. But how much time and how complicated it will be, let me give you some examples. Okay? Let's first look at the export, the number of signatures to conduct the export transactions. Okay? This is a survey conducted by World Bank. Let's start with Singapore and Finland. They are extremely efficient. Okay? To export something from Singapore or Finland, you only need 2 to 3 signatures. It's very simple. Okay? But if you look at the Gongo, it requires 42 signatures to just export something. It's very complicated. And Azerbaijan is 40 signatures, Nigeria 21, Mongolia 17, so China is something in the middle, it's 7, and the US is 5. Okay. I don't know, the data you took up.
Kazakhstan is actually pretty high also in number of days to clear customs. We do yearly reports done by the World Bank, the Asian Development Bank, and EBRD. And this is something that comes out every year as one of the things that we really have to work on hard. The bad news is it's too high now. The good news is if the government really believes in it, and I believe our government in Kazakhstan does really believe in it, it can actually be changed pretty rapidly.
Right.
I know if someone at ICORDA tomorrow says, I want to have it done, that it can be done pretty fast. So I expect some significant changes in that in the not too distant future. That's actually the good news. It can be changed.
It is. I think if president likes something, just 1 signature is enough, probably. Yeah. And this is just export. If we look at import, again, we see the same pattern. Finland imports something into Finland, 1 signature only. Okay? Singapore, 2, France, 3. Again, Nigeria, 71 signatures. Azerbaijan is 55 signatures. Congo is 51 signatures to import a product. It's complicated, right? And if you look at the time it takes, okay, to clear the sort of the border control and prepare the documents, important import and export documents. This is about the time it actually takes. Okay, so in OECD countries, the developed economies, you see it takes shortest time. Okay, very short for both documentary and borders. It takes shortest time, and for Europe and Central Asia countries, slightly longer. I guess Kazakhstan is part of that. This is a survey conducted by World Bank. So it means that in terms of time, Kazakhstan is not that bad, right? In terms of time, it's longer than OECD countries, but shorter than Eastern Asia and the Pacific countries, EANP, Eastern Asia and the Pacific countries. And the longest one is the sub-Sahara Africa. This is the longest time. It's very complicated. And this is consistent with the number of signatures we saw before in the previous slide. Okay, this is yes, this is Middle East and North Africa. Okay, this is South Asia, like India and Sri Lanka and Pakistan, Latin America and the Caribbean countries. Okay, this shows the actual time for export and import. It could be very time consuming because if we look at the African countries, just import is 160, just for border, the time to prepare the document to enter the border is 160 hours. That means you need to have a sort of one full-time employee working for it for like 1 month without doing anything. 160 hours. That means 1 month full-time job without doing anything, just to prepare some documents without creating any value. Okay, and if you think about the clearest time of import containers in different countries every time. Okay, so we start with Singapore again. It's extremely efficient. Okay, so nearly 70%, 70 or 80% containers can get cleared within 1 day. In the same day, okay, the customer is cleared. Okay, and the remaining containers can be cleared within 1 to 2 days, basically. It's very efficient. We go to the US, it's slightly worse, but still quite efficient. You can see that again, 70%, 80% can get cleared 1 to 2 days, and the remaining containers can be cleared within 1 week. Okay, but if we go to India, you can see that it's getting slower. Okay, on average probably takes like 1 week. Okay, to get something cleared. Okay, but this is just for one country. If you think about crossing borders among many countries, it may take tremendous amount of times. Okay, because this is just for one country. Right? And this is one big challenge behind Belton Road initiatives. If the countries along Belton Road initiative can work together to sort of form custom union resembling what happened in Kazakhstan, Russia, and Belarus, I mean, this could be a big challenge actually, because all benefits from this advanced railway network, okay, will be easily lost. Right? So, and eventually, in my opinion, probably this custom union among Kazakhstan and Russia has become a role model for many other countries in Belt and Road initiative. Okay. And the second challenge is a technical issue. Okay. Different countries use different technical standards in design their railway systems. Okay. It's about the track gauges. Okay. And China and the European Union use the so-called standard track gauge, which is eventually is a narrow gauge. It is 1,435 millimeters. Okay, and then Mongolia and eventually Russia and all former Soviet Union countries use this wide gauge. Okay, this is 1,520 millimeters. It means that Chinese trains cannot run, okay, on these gauges directly. Okay, so everything must be changed. It takes some time actually. Okay. People have to change the chassis and sort of adjust the gauges manually, and it may take several days actually. And from a pure technical perspective, okay, wider gauges like Russian standard gauges actually is supposed to have a higher stability, higher speed, but it's more expensive to construct. Okay, because it occupies more land as well. This is a pure technical issue. Okay, but the thing is, Chinese government is actually offering, say, Mongolia to construct a new railway system using Chinese standard or sort of European standard, but actually Mongolia actually refused to do that, mainly because of the national security issue. This this part related is politics. It's not a pure technical issue anymore, okay? Because some countries feel unsafe if they're using the same standard, the sort of technical standard as China. Okay, that's another challenge. Okay, that's another source of delay on the railway system.
This, of course, over time can also be changed. It used to be actually in Europe that
Right.
Spanish railroads had different gauges than the rest of Europe.
Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah,
So it can be changed.
yeah.
They still have, no? They still have? Yeah, that's my understanding. They have 16, even wider than Russia. 16, maybe not all trains.
Which standard will be used in Kazakhstan?
The Russian one, the Russian one, yeah. the Russian gauge.
China uses European.
This is the European one, so-called standard one. Yeah.
Which will be used under the project?
Still, this the Russian one, because they have to modify this. They have to change it. Load again.
We actually built a land port in Korgos to
Yeah.
actually get from one to the other.
Yeah. To do this. Yes, exactly. Yes, exactly. By the sea, uh-huh. Yeah. Change the trade-off, right? Because clearly this kind of delay will make a railway system in a more disadvantaged position because this slows down the speed and pushes up the cost actually. The labors, everything, all costs will go up. But fortunately, now they are trying to make the entire process automatic, right? As Patrick mentioned, right? In Horgos, right? They actually built a automatic switching station to change the gauges. But in the past, because it's very complicated, you need to unload a train completely and load it again to another train. Because Chinese train cannot run here anymore. Now they're actually doing this automatically. They just move this and put Chinese train onto the chassis of a Kazakh train directly, without unloading and uploading to make it faster.
Coming back to the casting, so it's pretty clear that in Kazakhstan, Horgos gateway will be the first point of receiving all these funds.
Right.
And what the Kazakh government should do in order to simplify custom routine?
I think Kazakhstan government has already done a very good job by having this custom union with Belarus and Russia. This is already a big move, actually. This simplify the custom significantly. But probably they could potentially, I guess, I don't know the number here, probably they could potentially reduce the number of signatures. Very likely, because there's no Kazakhstan, it's not shown here. Uh-huh.
Do you think that the Kazakh government should, for example, set up free zone at Horgos gateway?
Sorry, set up.
Free trade zone at Horgos.
Okay. Yeah, that's actually a very good idea. I think so. I agree. I think that could be a very
On the Chinese side, it already is
yeah,
one.
yeah. But Kazakh side problem.
And I think there are plans when you look at the development plan for
Right.
Korgos. I think there's a plan, but now I don't think it's as developed as much.
Right.
But it should be harmonization
Right.
from Kazakhstan to China.
Right. Exactly.
Otherwise,
Right.
what is the main frustration of Chinese government? Because is there some delays in the project realization? What is the main bottleneck?
The main bottleneck of that.
Yes, between like China and Kazakhstan.
Between China and Kazakhstan, I think there's no major complaints from Chinese side, as far as I heard, right? Because the collaboration with the Kazakhstan government was very smooth, as far as I heard, as far as I saw.
There is another thing that we all know Kazakhstan has written in its development plans, and very recently President Nazarbayev
Right.
mentioned in his speech as well, which is the digitization of the Kazakhstan economy. And so the number of physical signatures needed will significantly be reduced, and the speed of acquiring all the authorization will significantly accelerate because of digitization and
In fact, I think from Chinese side, Kazakhstan is a quite destination of investment because of a very stable political environment and social environment. Right? Probably the major risk is related with the currency, some macroeconomic issues. But in terms of general environment, even the infrastructure is quite good. It's quite stable. We don't see. Huh? Transparent? Oh, transparency is probably a luxury, I think, in many places. Yeah, yeah, please. Yeah. Right. Wow. It's long, yeah. Okay. Mm-hmm.
So the main problem here, we have to move from Chinese platform to Kazakhstan.
Ah, okay. Okay, this is bogey issue, right? Okay. Okay.
But usually it works well, and nowadays we work with Chinese R&D,
Mm-hmm.
contracting R&D.
Okay.
Chinese companies are happy with them, and we
Yeah.
because the fluctuation between the exchange rate.
Okay. Right.
So I think the barriers are not that
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Another question.
Yeah, please. Yeah. Sure.
I think it will be resolved quite shortly, even without the digitalization.
Uh-huh.
Currently, there is a project going on.
Uh-huh.
Most of the customs points in Kazakhstan on the borders will be subcontracted to a private company.
Mm-hmm.
And this private company will be like building equipment over there for the trucks as well.
Mm-hmm.
To scan the trucks without opening them.
Very good.
And also the documentation itself will go much
Mm-hmm.
faster.
Mm-hmm.
So, and they also plan to do even further, so I'm guessing a couple of years time max,
Yeah.
it will be resolved.
That'd be really encouraging for these projects. And so let's look at another challenge. That's a bigger challenge actually behind the entire Belton Road initiative, because this will influence the fundamental economic trade-off. All the economic trade-off we mentioned before, for example, transportation costs and the time. All right. So if you look at the trade between China and Europe, in 2016, so European Union in total imported $378 billion products from China. Okay, the top three imports from China are electronics, textile raw materials, and furniture and toys. Okay. On the other side, in 2016, European Union only exported $168 billion products to China. Okay, the top three exports are electronics, transportation equipment, chemical products. Okay, why this matter for Belton Road? Okay, you see nowadays, okay, suppose we use railways to transport product from China to Europe, it is full. So the entire container is actually full. Okay, the entire train could be full. Okay, but on the way back, because the export to China is so little, it's actually less than, it's only like 50% of the import. So that means that so on the way back, the train is only half full. Okay, so a lot of capacity has not been fully utilized. Okay, so as a result, the transportation cost, okay, on the way back to China is much higher than the per unit transportation cost. Okay, from China to Europe. Okay, but nowadays, okay, some companies in China, like HP, achieve a very, very low transportation cost, okay, because they are eventually bundling the demand and the export imports from many, many suppliers. In addition to that, HP get some subsidies from Chongqing government, okay, because Belt and Road initiative become a sort of a strategic initiative. So as a result, a lot of local government in China are trying to attract more shippers to use railways. Okay, so but how do they attract? They must offer some financial incentives. They offer subsidies. Okay, in order to compensate the increased transportation costs on the way back to China, even though it's just it's half full. Okay, but this is not sustainable. Right? Because a lot of local government in China cannot afford paying these subsidies anymore. Okay, some, like Chongqing government, they said they will stop paying that by 2020. They will not do this anymore, okay, because this is too much. They pay a lot for this. Okay, so in order to make this the entire plan sustainable, I believe that this must be self-sufficient. Okay, this must be a profitable business for both sides. Nowadays, it's like eventually it relies on the subsidies from Chinese taxpayers. And that's not really sustainable. And we will see what's going to happen after 2020. Say Chongqing stopped paying for this. All right? But this is more like a fundamental reason. It's not easy to be solved in a short period of time. All right? So last risk, we talk about sort of generic risks. Okay, so Belton Road initiative implies a massive amount of infrastructure investment all over the world. Okay, so we mentioned that there are two sources of fundings. One is like a multi-party funding agency, that's an Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, the 84 members. Another is a Chinese party funding agency, that's a Silk Road Fund. Okay, and you see, there are many big projects. Say in Pakistan, China promised to invest $46 billion to build China-Pakistan economical corridor. Okay, this is gets some strong objection from India. We know that, and Asian Infrastructure Bank will invest $100 billion with $40 billion set up as a Silk Road Fund. Okay, on logistics facilities, IT, energies, on Belton Road initiatives. Okay. So a lot of risks are embedded in this massive infrastructure investment. Okay? But what are these risks? And where do these risks come from? Okay? We can easily identify all kinds of risks in these countries. Because most of the countries along Belton Road are emerging economies. Okay? We see something called funding risk. Okay? The one government says they provide funding, but all of a sudden the government changed. A new leader came into power. He said, no, I stopped providing funding. Or they don't have money anymore. This happens in Venezuela, okay, several years ago. And the regulatory approvals, this sometimes even happen in OECD countries, like France and the UK. And the contract process without transparency, right, exactly as you mentioned. This actually happens in Mexico. Right? Because Chinese company try to build something in Mexico, they sign a contract, and the president of Mexico already signed. But then some congressman said, okay, this contract has no transparency. I don't know how this contract is signed. There's some scandal behind that. And the Mexico government said, okay, this contract becomes invalid. Okay, so all of a sudden, all initial investment become wasted. Okay, so and the local blockage, this happens in Myanmar and Pakistan. And the different disruptions, skilled labor availability in different countries, particularly in Africa countries, and the material supplies, extreme weather conditions in Kazakhstan sometimes, and the operability upon completion. I build something for you, but who can operate them after the completion? That's another big challenge for many countries involved in this initiative. All right. So if you look at Central Asia, according to this is a subunit of Financial Times. Okay, according to their research, in Central Asian countries, the main risks come from economical risk and infrastructure risk. Economic risks are mainly related with the currency, with the tax, with the interest rate, inflation, these kind of risks. Infrastructure risk, okay? We can see that actually Kazakhstan is quite good. It's a relatively high macroeconomic risk, but quite low infrastructure risk, okay? But like Mongolia, Armenia, Pakistan, they have very high infrastructure risk. This kind of risk in Central Asian countries. If you look at the risk in Middle East, they have different kinds of risk, please. Sustainability, like environmental. Okay. Right. Yeah, exactly. I mean, from Chinese perspective, because China eventually is an investor, right? Because the investor always cares about the payoff it could get. But whether Kazakhstan accept this investment is a strategic decision. Probably Kazakhstan government need to really think about that. It's not about what investors think about. It's also about what you really need. Because at the early stage of Chinese economic reform, China was also facing the exact same problem. Because a lot of the investors, like particularly from Europe, they moved their production facilities with high pollution to China, like the manufacturer of marbles, for example. The manufacturer of marble creates a lot of polluted waters and like small molecules. You know, in the past, Italy was the largest marble manufacturer in the world, but not anymore. They moved most of their facility in China. So China needs to think about this. Do you care about your employment, your income, or environmental protection? I mean, this depends on Chinese, I believe, in Chinese context, this really depends on Chinese government. This is a strategic choice. I mean, it's like China has a right to say no, resembling what Cuba did. Cuba refused to accept all this kind of investment. But that's part of the sovereignty of Chinese government. Similar here, I do believe that if you really think about railways passing through the deserts or something, there will be some impact on the environment, for sure. I believe so. Okay, even think about the railway in Tibet. Right? China constructed a sort of railway connecting Lhasa and and Xi'an, I think. Right? It's a big project, and it's a quite controversial project actually, because people think about the animals, the wild animals, and other environmental issues. But again, I don't think this is like a perfect solution. I don't think so. But this is rather a strategic decision. You need to decide what do you want to do, right? Because yes. Sorry.
Recently, after the Communist conference, the Chinese government restricted the environmental policy. Like,
Yeah.
again, coming back to my workplace,
Yeah.
because the government wants blue sky, as we
Yeah. Exactly. Right.
the prices of raw materials
Yeah.
increase,
Yeah. Exactly.
there is no supply.
You're right. You're absolutely right. I'm from China, but I think for China, blue sky is luxurious. I have to say it's luxurious. I mean, it's nice to have blue sky, but you have to pay for that. For example, some people will lose their jobs. For example, during Olympic Games, China shut down all plants surrounding Beijing. Not just only Beijing, like all provinces surrounding Beijing. They shut down the production and the construction. This creates perfect blue sky during Olympic game in 2008. It's very nice. Everyone like it, but it's very costly. Many people lose their job, right? It's hard, I think. That's why probably government needs to think about it. This is another issue. But here, China is just like an investor. They think about sort of the business. They think about it from a business perspective, right? I put money here and to think about what I can get. Whether the host country accept it, that does not depend on China. Whether Pakistan accept it or Myanmar, well, that's not. I mean, that's their right to decide, right? That's part of their sovereignty to decide that. Okay, but the thing is, but the bottom line is they have to keep their promise, right? The worst thing is that some countries promise something, but they change. That's the risk China needs to really evaluate, because they really sign something, but then they change. That's related with all the other things, fundings and government changes, right? Because initially one government says it's okay, but another government said no, I don't want it anymore. Right? This happens quite often in some countries. In that case, you can't do anything, right? So the risk in the Middle East is different, like securities and government risks. Kazakhstan does not have this risk. It's very stable. But in the Middle East, this could be a big issue. Okay, so government changes, everything may change, right? And all agreement will become invalid. That will be a disaster, okay, for the investors. Okay, so if we draw a map of risks along Belton Road initiatives, we can see that European countries, okay, have very low risk. Okay, they are sort of low risk countries, but the expected profit are also low. Okay, and the countries with the highest risk, one is I think this is a Syria, and this is like a Sudan, Somalia, and probably African. Right? Obviously, these countries have very high risks, and Russia has relatively high risks, and Kazakhstan has a lower risk than Russia. It's the same level as India, actually. The risk is not very high, in fact, right? Because the darker the color is, the higher risk that region or country have. Okay, that's sort of the roadmap of operation risks. And before you make big sort of investment plan, you need to really think about the risk all over the world. Okay, so what should be done then? Okay, so this is what China is trying to do in short term and long term. I'm trying to close my presentation on this. And in short term, simplify the customs and unite the track gauges. Okay, that's the short-term action plan. But in long term, it's about balancing the trade between Europe and China. That's something fundamental. Because otherwise, this initiative cannot be self-sufficient. Okay, this may collapse at the end. And from risk management perspective, diversify the portfolios by investing into different kinds of projects. Not only infrastructure projects, but other, say, environmental projects, for example, to increase the public image of this Belton Road initiatives, and collaborate with other international entities instead of making investment into these countries alone. Because if you make an investment into this country alone, you need to bear all the risk by yourself. Okay? This is actually what AIIB, Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, is trying to do. So this bank is always trying to make investment together with other banks, say World Bank or Asia Development Bank. By doing so, they can sort of share the risks. Okay, so 30% money come from me, 40% come from you, 30% come from another party. By doing so, many countries get involved, and the risks are shared. Right? And for Chinese perspective, there's another big issue: the strategic resource allocation. Okay, because Belt Road implies two initiatives eventually. One is belt, another is road. Okay? But what is the relationship between belt and the road? And there's some debate among Chinese academia, actually. So which one should have the priority, belt or road? Right? It really depends on the risks. Okay, Chinese economy is big, but it's not big enough to support both. So there must be some priority. Okay, so some academia believe that a belt is more important because Kazakhstan is quite stable, at least, and also Russia is relatively stable these years. But the road is not that stable. But some people think that the road is easier to get constructed because it requires less amount of investment. Because you only build some harbors and using some existing harbors. You don't need to build a vast network of railways anymore. It's about strategic priority. And China, I don't think China has made any clear decision on this issue because this implies competition for resource. But you can't do both at the same time. Okay. Also for investment models, okay, China tries to innovate its investment models. There are two existing investment models, okay, for Chinese fund. One is so-called Angola model. This is a credit, natural resources, and project model. Okay, so this model functions in the following way. Okay, so China promised to build, say, something like, say, a theater or cinema or like a stadium for Angola. Okay, in return, so China can get some natural resources at a fixed price for several years. Because Angola doesn't need to pay for the construction of this public infrastructure. They pay with natural resources. Okay, that's how this works in Angola. This so-called Angola model. Okay, using natural resources to exchange for Chinese projects. And there's another model. This basically applies to the railway construction and the harbors. Is a construction, operation, and a project model. China uses that quite often in Africa as well, in Kenya, Zimbabwe. So what happens? So the way this model works is that, so China promised to construct everything, basically a harbor or railway for this country. This country doesn't pay anything. Okay, and China. So most of the raw materials come from China eventually. China promised to hire some local workers, but a large portion of workers eventually come from China. Okay. And after the project is finished, Chinese company will operate this harbor or this railway for several years, like 10 years, 20 years for free. Okay? And this country doesn't need to pay anything. After 20 years, this project will be returned to this country. So eventually, this country doesn't need to pay anything, but this country needs to provide land. That's something this country need to provide. This model works okay in African countries, but there are some controversial issues as well. Okay, it's really, in my opinion, it really depends on the demand from the host countries. If they need it, so why not? Because for a lot of African countries, they simply do not have enough engineers or workers, even raw materials, to construct these basic infrastructures like harbor. So they some help from outside. But from the perspective of foreign investors, they are also looking for some profits. It's not a free deal, right? So ideally, there should be a win-win solution at the end. Okay, but in worst case, this may become quite political. Okay, so another model Chinese government trying to do is revenue sharing business model. Okay, so instead of constructing everything by China, instead of operating everything by China, they split revenues between Chinese investors and some local collaborators. So local collaborators do not have a lot of capability, but they must contribute something, and they will get something. Okay, after the project was completed. By such, the conflict of interest could be resolved. Okay, so the multiple parties could have the same incentive. Okay, to make the project work. That's a new model Chinese government trying to push. Okay, and also in terms of terms, it's a long-term contract versus a short-term contract. Okay, but operation people always like long-term contract. That's what Toyota did. And we know long-term contract create some good benefits, such as trust, okay, such as relatively low price and good quality. So the long-term contract has a lot of benefits. But the thing is that the risks behind these countries along Belton Road are so high, right? So if you lock yourself with some countries with very, very high risk, you may be screwed at the end. That's a big lesson Chinese government learned in the past few years. That's why China is gradually moving to the short-term contract instead of long-term contract to avoid this kind of problem, sort of the bad outcomes. Okay, this is a invest models. Okay, again, this is another thing. This is related with technology. Okay, technology progress. Okay, so in order to fasten the time it takes to clear the custom, okay, China start to construct automatic harbor. That means there are a lot of robots, okay, operating, okay, operated by the computers. Okay, so one recent case is in Qingdao. It happens in it started operation in 2017. It's a quite new project. Okay, it is so far the largest automatic harbor in the entire Asia. Okay, so in this big harbor, there are only 6 operators remotely controlling everything. They use a lot of robots. Okay, and in each robot there are a lot of algorithms. Okay, calculating the optimal path of transportation. So everything is done by artificial intelligence. Okay, so the transportation distance is carefully calculated. Okay, and by doing so, they can reduce the staffing level by 85%. Now only 6 people operating a big harbor, and fasten the speed of clearing customs by 35%. Okay, and China is trying to sort of extend this role model in Qingdao in other harbors. For example, one harbor in Sri Lanka, they try to replicate the similar harbor there. All right, so the implications. This is my last slide. Implication for Chinese economy. Clearly, this implies the redistribution of Chinese economies. Okay, this creates a lot of opportunities for inland provinces of China, like Xinjiang provinces, like Shanxi provinces, and Shanxi provinces. And some inner cities in China may emerge in the short period of time, like Xi'an, Lanzhou, and Chongqing. Okay, and it may create more demand abroad. That's why people always make an analogy between this one and the Marshall Plan. And for Western European companies, okay, they may relocate the production facilities, like Zara. Okay, this also creates some threat. Okay, one threat I saw from in Spain is that this creates a lot of competition. Okay, but a lot of European, like Eastern European countries or Central European countries, become a big competitors for Spanish logistics companies. But in the past, everything goes to the ocean freight, and Spain is a hub of ocean freight. Valencia and Barcelona, they're very good. The land is relatively cheap in Spain. But now, with this advanced railway system, a lot of warehouses eventually were moved to Hungary, to Poland. The labor costs even cheaper, and the land is also very cheap. Okay, in Spain, actually, the largest Chinese product warehouse was moved from Spain to Hungary already 3 years ago. Okay, so they already create some threat for Western European countries. Okay, for other countries, it's like an emergence of new transportation hubs. This happens in the history. Okay, with some cities go up and down. Okay, when the technology evolved, you see when the railway system passes some cities, okay, some cities can quickly got rich, but they may quickly got poor. Right? So this is again, these are potential big opportunities and the challenges for some cities at least. Right? So that's all for my presentation. Okay, I hope you get some information from this. Okay, thanks a lot. Okay. Thank you so much.
Jan, thank you very much. That was a lot of information. I think also a lot of good information and some perspectives, I think, that will help us think more broadly about what the Belton Road Initiative could mean. If I just for myself think about some of the things that I will remember, is that first of all, we can consider it as a blue ocean strategy, that it's not only to get products from A to B, but also anywhere in between, which by and large also creates opportunities for countries in between, like Kazakhstan is one of them. It also has significantly reduced the cost of the three initiatives, especially the railroad initiatives, a lot more than what it was before. Before it seemed like there was one extreme, another extreme, and then the railroad in the middle. From your example, I remember that now, because of all these opportunities created, that the overall cost has gone down, and that it's now not 2 or 3 times as expensive anymore as ocean freight, but only 25% as expensive as extra expensive as ocean freight, but much faster. So that creates a real interesting alternative. The other thing I remember is that there are a number of challenges and risks, but that many of these challenges can be resolved in a fairly short time. And so we sit in the middle, and that is good news for us here in Kazakhstan. Finally, I also remember that, you know, for countries, you know, along the Belt Road, there are new opportunities. Not only as the emergence of the transportation hub, will we become the Hungary of the Eurasian continent, you know? Hungary sits in the middle of Europe, we sit in the middle of the Eurasian continent, but also how creative and innovative will we all be here in Kazakhstan to create new business opportunities. It could be warehousing, but it could also be value-added manufacturing, so that products not only just go from China to Europe or from Europe to China, but that we also offer manufacturers something in the middle to add value to the process. That is really good for Kazakhstan. That will really grow our GDP. Finally, I would also say I'm a big believer of technology. But let's not forget that one of the big resources that Kazakhstan has is not just oil, gas, and minerals, but lots of land. And lots of land means potential for lots of agricultural production, and smart agricultural production, with satellite networks and sensor networks and smart irrigation. That will help us generate great agricultural output for the region, but also for China and for Europe. Before the Belton Road Initiative existed, that was great if we could produce more, but we couldn't get it out of here easily. With the Belton Road Initiative, we can now produce more, we can do it smart, and we can get it to the rest of the world. And that, I think, is a very exciting perspective for Kazakhstan. So, Zhijan, thank you so much for leading us.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
I'm sure if you have some more questions that Zhijan will be happy to stay 5 or 10 minutes longer.